you're a golf fan, you may already know that Team USA pulled off its first victory since 2017 at the Solheim Cup, a biennial team competition between the top women professional golfers from Europe and the United States. So I had the privilege of speaking with LPGA pro Stacy and Team USA captain earlier this year for my Off the Rack podcast, and I've decided to re-air two special parts of our conversation in honor of her role. Back to back, these are two exemplary stories about success and influence from a leadership role model, which I think you're going to find to be really, really interesting. And hey, if you missed the latest episode of Off the Rack featuring veteran character actor Robert Creighton, I'm posting the link for that here as well. Look, learning to lead isn't just done from the C-suite. Great leaders can come from any industry. My podcast, Off the Rack, inspires curious leaders to embrace challenges and look for opportunities to be a positive influence in their world, like Stacy Lewis and Robert Creighton. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. It had to be a great honor for you to be named captain of the U.S. team competing for the Solheim Cup last year. I mean, that is about as good an honor as you're going to find.
It's as high as it gets. Yes.
Unbelievable. And then you're going to be captain next year too.
Mm-hmm.
And so look, that's got to be an amazing leadership lesson. And I'd like to learn a little bit from that experience and maybe talk about the challenges that you faced in, well, number one, assembling a team's got to be a challenge in and of itself, but also the pressure you were under trying to compete in European soil. I mean, that must have been amazing.
Yeah, I knew I was going to be captain at some point. It's probably about 10 years earlier than I was expecting. Just kind of the way things fell. And, my biggest thing is the girls asked for me. They asked for me to be captain. And that meant a lot to me more than anything. But it was a challenge. I'd say organizationally, kind of behind the scenes, we needed to get better as an organization and as a group to help the girls and the team be more successful. So a lot of what I did to prepare for Solheim Cup was just organizing the group of people behind us. And, a lot of things I asked, how do we announce the team? How do we do this? And they're like, well, what do you want to do? And so I had to make a lot of decisions, and I could have stepped back and let somebody else make those decisions, but I felt like if it was coming from one person, there would be some cohesiveness to what was happening. I could create a vibe, create an atmosphere. And that to me was the way we were going to win this, was creating an atmosphere where these girls felt comfortable and where they could have fun and be successful. And I just felt like I needed to take the reins and go make all the decisions. And while some were hard, some were easier, but that was probably the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah. And now you're going to do it in 2024 here in the US.
Yeah. And it's honestly the pressure. There's more pressure playing than being captain. I will tell you that. Playing in Solheim Cups is the hardest golf the players will ever play. I mean, you're standing on the first. I remember Jennifer Cupcho coming over to me in Spain after she hit her first tee shot, and her hand was literally going like this, like it was. I mean, it's just the most unbelievable pressure that they will ever face. And, the pressure as captain was my hardest, kind of the hardest thing for me was to trust the process, trust what we had in place, especially with pairings, because you get second guessed a little bit in the media. You throw those first round out and they're kind of like, really? You put those players together? You got number one sitting on the bench over here. Like, what are you doing? And I just had to trust the process that we had worked on for a year and a half. And so I learned, the first session we went undefeated. We were undefeated. We won all 4 matches. And it was like the biggest validation of trusting the process, everything we have worked on. And, I wish we could change the outcome, but I feel like we're on a good path now.
Well, I thought you guys played great, but it was very close, obviously. Um,
Yes.
and hopefully this year we'll get over the hump. And
Yes.
so we will. But when you talk about that nervousness, just to follow up on that as a player,
Hmm.
is that because you're playing for your country and that's different than playing for yourself?
Hmm.
What is it that gives you that nervousness?
I think I think it's the number of people you're playing in front of. That
Right.
first tee, if
Sure.
you've never been to a first tee at Solheim Cup, you got to experience it at least once. I mean, it is a massive amount of people, just a massive amount of energy. So you're representing your country, but you're representing those 11 other players that are there next to you. You got
Yeah.
a part, especially in those early matches, you got a partner you're playing with too, and you don't want to screw up for your partner, so you're playing on edge. And it definitely I think it takes some time to learn how to play in Solheim Cups, just to learn to handle the energy that's around it.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Um, so Stacy, I'm going to change courses a little bit
Hmm.
again. One of my personal messages is the importance of influence.
Hmm.
And whether it's influence at work, on the course, your friends and family, whatever it is, I think we make the world a better place whenever we
Hmm.
have a positive influence on the people around us. And you're
Hmm.
originally from Ohio, but you grew up in Houston.
Hmm.
And in 2017, catastrophe struck Houston. And
Yep.
I wrote about it in my book, Transfluence. I was so impressed by the way you acted. And you know, you won a golf tournament. I think it was the
Hmm.
following weekend or maybe 2 weekends after that. I
Hmm.
can't remember exactly what it was.
Hmm.
And you took your proceeds and you said, I'm going to make a difference in the city of Houston.
Hmm.
I think KPMG had something to do with that too, which you're wearing the hat right now. But
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about that experience and
Yeah.
really from the perspective of how you try to influence for good in the city of Houston?
Yeah. So when Harvey hit, I was actually in Canada, and my parents were at home. My husband was at home. At the time, he was the women's golf coach at the University of Houston. So he was home, just trying to get his girls off the campus and make sure all of them are safe. And then I'm up in Canada just playing a golf tournament. And it was hard because I'm like, what am I doing? I got everybody at home. I mean, they're worried about whether they got power tomorrow. Like there's just like, this seems really dumb. Like, why am I here playing golf? And so we finished in Canada. I think it hit that weekend. And then our next tournament was in Portland. And I wanted to go home, but airports were closed. Like there was no way for me to get home. Um, so I went to Portland, and I don't know what it was. I just called my husband one night early in the week and I just said, hey, whatever I make this week, we're donating to the recovery efforts. And that was it. There was no discussion. There was no, like, that was it. And I get emotional thinking about it because it was a stretch in my career where I'd finished second a lot. I mean, I think it was close to a dozen runner-up finishes since the last time I had won, and just been a very hard stretch of me not being able to get over hump to win. And
Hmm.
just to do that, you stop thinking about winning. You know, it became every birdie was more money that I could send, and that was all I was thinking about. More birdies, more birdies, more birdies. And then you get the whole check. So it was just one I'll never forget. And then my husband surprised me, which then I was a wreck. And then KPMG calls and says, hey, we're going to match it. And so we raised over $500,000 in that day. And what hit me at the time was homes, and not having a place to call home, not having a place to go to. And because I travel so much, I mean, home's important to me. And so I partnered with a charity, SVP, and they helped me rebuild houses in Houston. So it was a very cool process. I was actually able to help go help work on some of the houses during the off season, and just to get people back in their houses was really, really, really cool.
What an amazing story. I mean, what an amazing story. That's, I mean,
It was,
yeah.
you can call it a God thing. You can call it fate. You can call it whatever you want. I mean, there was something else in play that week.